So welcome to our webinar, Shielding Your Business from Cyber Catastrophes, the CEO Guide to Cyber Liability Insurance. This webinar will discuss the importance of cyber liability insurance for businesses, particularly in today's digital age where cyber threats are becoming increasingly sophisticated. Today, our speakers, we have Jeff Jackson from Summit IT Service and Justin Reinmuth from TechRug, the insurance specialist, who will provide valuable insight on how cyber liability insurance can protect your business and what factors to consider when choosing the right policy. So we're going to learn more about how you can safeguard your business from cyber catastrophes through cyber liability insurance. So just an overview about what we're going to be talking today. I apologize, I keep going back and forth. But we are asking if anybody currently has any IT related cyber liability insurance. I said that really wrong, but any of our attendees here, do they have cyber liability insurance? You can raise your hand, you can write in chat.
I can tell you from experience when I ask a lot of our clients when we meet with them about their cyber liability insurance, the answer is yes. And then when we get a look at the policy, it's typically a rider of some sort, which covers not much. But that's, just based on my experience with current customers and potential clients.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll go more deep dive into that later on. But we're going to kind of discuss today, we're going to have a speaker introduction of Jeff and Justin. Then we're going to have a brief statistics, and then Jeff's going to go forward to the NIST cybersecurity framework. Most of our stuff is based around that. And then Justin's going to go into what cyber liability insurance is, and then what are the benefits. Jeff and Justin are going to have a conversation about that. Following that, we will do a quick Q&A and then a recap of what we spoke about today. So, Jeff, do you want to speak a little bit about yourself?
Well, I don't talk much about myself. I'm not that exciting, but I've been doing IT my entire life. Started in defense contracting, did some software development for 10 years with a software company, and then almost 20 years ago now, started Summit IT Services. Love what I do. It's always exciting. It is always changing. Nothing stands still. I love working with small businesses of any size, really, helping them secure their networks, keep them up and running, and best of all, my favorite thing to do is finding those little tidbits of efficiency that can be had from technology.
How about you, Justin?
Yeah, no, I think with us, TechRug is, we've been around for going on 20 years now. We've got about 2,200 cyber clients that we focus on. So I would say, probably, 80% of those are what they call managed service providers, which is what Jeff and Summit are. And then we've got another 20% that are, accounting firms, law firms, healthcare providers, manufacturers that range from anywhere from $1 million in revenues to, up to, I think our largest is like $700 million in asbestos trust fund. So, it's what we eat, live, and breathe. So, I'm happy to be on the call today and hopefully we can provide some insight.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for that. So right now we're going to go talk about a little bit about brief statistics. I always talk about the statistics because it's important to know what's actually going in this world. There's a lot of things that are happening and we're not very updated about it. So it's important to learn more so you could teach yourself how to better your technology and your business in the long run. So this is the year of 2020. The statistics about it are more solid. So that's why I talk about 2020, but they increase over year. So 1,001 reported data breaches in the United States with 310 million of individuals affected. So that's not just your clients, it's also your employees, it's also yourself. And the usual data breach is around 280 days. So once you are breached, how do you respond? How much money are you losing? The average of 280 days, that's lost productivity. That's time your employees basically have off. And that's also hurting your reputation with your business and clients as well. The average cost of a data breach is $3.86 million. A lot of people believe that they're not, large enough to be breached, but when they are breached, $3.86 million is going to put you out of business. And 95% of those breaches are actually caused by human error, whether it's phishing emails, putting in the wrong credentials, password management, all these add up to the breaches. It's all human error, and it's called human error because we can't protect ourselves against everything, so we have these tools set in place to make sure you're more secure. And then 43% of cyber attacks are actually aimed at small businesses. So the 1,001, almost half of them were affected by these data breaches. So it's not a matter of if you'll get breached, it's a matter of when you'll get breached. So it's important for you to shield your business and also be protective of it in the long run. So if you are breached, how do you respond? So we always base our stuff off the NIST cybersecurity framework, and Jeff is going to deep dive a little bit as to why it's important we look at this and how we respond when something like this does happen.
Thanks for that, Christina. So just a kind of little history on NIST. National Institutes of Standard and Technology has been around for many, many years, probably as long as I have. And the cybersecurity framework was put together as a easy to understand tool to protect businesses from, protect is one element of it. It's basically a guide on how to employ not only technology, but policy procedure for when a breach happens. So, over the last, let's say 10, 15 years, prior to that, virus protection did a pretty good job. Attacks were basically, what kind of damage can we do? It's not until, the last 15 years that it's been about a monetary, and the attackers range from nation states to organized crime to people with too much time on their hands. So just to kind of briefly go over this framework, identify what you have so you can protect it with the appropriate tools. That's been in play in the IT industry for quite some time. The detection part has been danced around a little bit, but the idea is, you're gonna get breached. The point of the detect part is, how do you know? And Christina mentioned, let's take Harvard Pilgrim. They were breached in April of 17th, I believe it was, and now the word's coming out that the hackers may have been in there for up to 6 months. So when did the detection is really about, when did they infiltrate the system? And then once you've been breached, how do you respond and how do you recover? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. People don't, I'm an IT, and I identify, protect, and detect. That's real easy now. But how do you respond and recover? That's more policy and procedure stuff. And what I've learned in my years of working with Justin is just how to do that. First of all, what things need to be in place for identify, protect, and detect, but how do you respond? And how do you recover once you've been, been attacked or breached? So that's how NIST plays into this. Again, NIST is the baseline for almost every regulation out there, whether you're in banking, defense contracting, HIPAA, FINRA, which covers financial institutions. This is the baseline of all of those regulations. You don't hear about banking much in the news, do you, Justin? They don't have a choice. Same thing with defense contracting. They don't have a choice. If you don't comply with regulations, DFARS is defense contracting, we work a little bit with, you don't get the contract. And in banking, if you don't comply, you don't have a bank. Think of it as a restaurant with a liquor license. As soon as they violate the terms of that license, they yank the license and you can't serve liquor. Where the rest of us really don't have an overseeing body that really enforces it, especially in the healthcare realm. Healthcare, is being hacked left and right, and the only way that we're going to get beyond this is to make sure that we're all doing the right thing. So That's the NIST cybersecurity framework and how it affects regulation, and the pieces of it that really we're here to talk about today is the response and recover. But Justin also knows and has helped me with over the years of what we also want to do, need to do in the detection and protection realm, so that, we're, I guess the key is, reducing the threat landscape. I guess that's unless I got a better word for that. Justin, you want to talk about that part of it a little bit?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, when you're each organization, when you're dealing with, kind of the cyber risk out there, it has to be a holistic approach to it. So you can't rely 100% on Jeff and, the security that's in place. And the reason that I mentioned that is that, you got two choices for email, Microsoft and Google, right? So if Microsoft or Google has a breach, I don't know how Jeff's supposed to prevent that, So, you got to make sure that, yes, security is extremely, extremely, extremely important. But things can go wrong. So that's what I mean by you can't invest 100% on security. And the other side is you can't, rely on 100% insurance. It's getting to the point where the insurance carriers won't let you when they send you these detailed questionnaires. For me, when people always ask me, they'll say, well, Justin, why do I need cyber insurance? And I'll say, have Jeff unplug your network Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning and turn it back on at 5. We call it a ransomware fire drill and let me know how your day goes. You're going to find out you can't access email. You can't access your environment. You can't do business. Now, if you're a construction company and you're building a house or something like that, there are certain things that you can still do. But if you're a healthcare organization or an accountant or a lawyer or somebody that depends on the email and your management system, it's going to be tough. So that to me is why cyber insurance is important, because go and try to the preferred method of payment is digital currency. Go try to get Bitcoin tomorrow. It's not easy, right? You have to mine it, right? And again, depending on who the bad actors are, they all take different forms of payment, but the only payment is it's not cash, it's not checks, it's digital currency. And we have a lot of clients that didn't have cyber insurance. I remember a manufacturer's rep told me, he said, Justin, if you ever need an advertisement, now he got cyber insurance through us after an attack. He said, please use me. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I was down for almost 4 weeks. I had to learn all this stuff on my own, and almost 25% of his business was lost.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to sit around, for a day or two. Your clients will put up with it. After a week or two, they're just not going to put up with it. Now, some people will stay, but they'll also have people that'll leave. That's really what the importance of cyber insurance is. The other thing you got to remember is that cyber insurance isn't all created equal. I mean, I own, insurance agency. We're actually in the process of becoming a cover holder, but think of us as an insurance agency right now. I have to carry insurance agent E&O. A lawyer has to carry lawyer's professional liability. A doctor has to carry medical malpractice. A lot of these professional liability carriers, as well as your business insurance, they give you, let's call it add-ons, right? So when you go through these cyber add-ons, a lot of them, for the most part, address stuff that was important in 2015, 16, 17, and 18, which is PHI and PII. I can't remember the last time our forensics said that, yeah, they really tried to use that PHI or PII. They don't pay attention to it, right? But a lot of these cyber add-on endorsements really focus on those type of risks. Hey, if Justin's social security number is compromised, you have to provide credit monitoring. Here's how much it costs. You might have a regulatory fine or penalty, so you got to add regulatory coverage. You might have to hire a PR firm. Let's get the PR folks out there. Again, if you're going to say that's so 2015 to 2019, it just doesn't happen anymore. Really right now what these bad actors are focused on is they're focused on ransomware attacks, and they're focused on cybercrime. So those add-ons, they either don't address it or they address it at a lower level, what we would call a sublimit. So let's say that your cyber endorsement that you pay $210 for on your professional liability or your business insurance, it gives you $25,000 of cyber extortion. The average cyber extortion payment, and we get a lot of our information from Net Diligence. They put on because they actually crunch. They get 20 to 25 insurance carriers to participate and share claims data. So you're at about $400,000 for a ransom. How many of you would want to self-insure $375,000? You're not going to do it, right? So why pay the $210? If you're going to do it right. Take out a full standalone comprehensive cyber liability insurance. I don't look to my business insurance and I don't look to my insurance agent E&O to address my cyber needs. I look to a standalone comprehensive cyber policy to do so. Does it cost me more? Yes. Can I afford the downtime? No. So I, like you guys, I invest in when my IT service provider, i.e. my managed service provider, says, hey, you need to look at this. Maybe it's because I'm in the industry, but I would tell you, I'm the ER doctor that gets to see a lot of people coming through the door with missing arms, missing fingers, missing legs. I would tell you, don't skimp on security. Don't do it. You know, um, the slide that just came up here, it just highlights some of the important things that a comprehensive cyber policy is going to cover. I'm not going to bore you with it. I can send Jeff after the webinar. I can send him a list of kind of what each of these mean, and you can check and make sure when you're shopping for cyber insurance, that you include these things. But a lot of these insuring agreements, right? When you have one domino that falls, I don't think a lot of people realize that you'll have 5 other dominoes that'll fall. So what do I mean by that? Cyber extortion, we get hit with a ransomware attack. You're going to suffer business interruption. Do you have business interruption? You're going to have to hire a breach response team. Do you have breach response costs? You're going to have to pay attention to typically hardware is destroyed. So we call it computer hardware replacement or bricking coverage. Do you have coverage for that? So there are several dominoes that follow. The other thing again is cyber crime. People will say, there's several components that make up cyber crime. Again, I put it up here: fraudulent instruction, funds transfer, and telephone fraud. These cyber insurance carriers, will often supplement that. That's not a bad thing. So, meaning if you have $1 million cyber policy, you're only going to probably have 100,000 or 250,000 of cyber crime. That's fine, right? I mean, that's normal for the cyber insurance carriers. You can either choose to work with that particular carrier on upping the sub limit to maybe 500,000. A lot of the carriers won't do it for you. So your other option is to go and take out, again, a standalone crime policy. So those can be a tad bit more expensive, but they'll cover things like employee dishonesty. They'll cover third-party crime, again, depending on what your business does, but like an accounting firm. I used to write a lot of accounting, APL, accountants professional liability. If they're doing bookkeeping services, a lot of the clients want to make sure that you've got third-party coverage if your employees do something, and take money from that particular client. So a crime policy does serve a need other than cyber crime, but you will at that point probably get full limits. If you got $1 million crime policy, you'll probably get $1 million sub limit. So these are just some of the insuring agreements that you want to pay attention to that include, that are comprehensive when it comes to a standalone cyber policy. So, I know we have other slides, but I don't know if anyone has any questions. Or Jeff, you're probably a consumer of cyber insurance. Do you have anything that I've mentioned, over the last 5 minutes? That you...
Yeah, I think you explained it, and I've picked this up through the years too. There's 3 different pieces I think that you can purchase at different levels, right? Everybody thinks about insurance as like, okay, my car got wrecked. How do I fix it? Well, that's why there's medical on your auto policies, because you hurt somebody, you got to pay for them too. In the case of cyber liability insurance, you get hacked. Okay, what's the ransom? Let's pay it. But your doors are closed for how many days? How are you going to make payroll? How are you going to stay in business, right? Who pays for that? And then also, how are you going to pay for the people that have been damaged or hurt? So those 3 pieces, right? You got to pay the ransom, you got to pay your employees, you got to stay in business. I think they call it continuation of services or something like that. And then how are you going to pay the recurring costs of, the list of people that were breached? You may have to offer them, credit, whatever. And if they can prove that they were harmed, well, you got follow-up lawsuits to deal with. So those 3 pieces are how I best understand it. And if you're covering for one, do you want to self-insure for the rest? And I would say I personally can't take that risk myself.
Yeah. So, it's important. And, kind of to dovetail off that, another question that we get a lot, because I'm staring at the what's included, but often people ask us, what limit should I carry? And I always tell people, anyone that can answer that to you honestly is lying to you, because remember, this is kidnapping. A ransomware attack is kidnap and ransom insurance. So I've got a son that's going to be 17 years old. If somebody takes them, are they going to want $1 million or $5 million? I have no clue. Right. So the same thing is when your organization, God forbid, gets hit with a ransomware attack, they might want 200,000. They might want $2 million. I don't know. I've seen them both. When you do get hit, is the decryption key going to work the first time or not? Because if it doesn't work the first time, then we got to wait a day or two, which is 2 more days of business interruption. When we do get the decryption key, are 30% going to work or 80% going to work? Because I've seen it both. Are they going to lock up 1 terabyte of data or 2 terabytes of data? Because to unlock another a terabyte of data, as Jeff will tell you, takes a long time. These bad actors are great at encrypting, and it goes very quick on the encryption. The decryption is painfully slow, and there's just nothing you can do to speed it up. Same thing on the crime. We recently had a client in Colorado. It was larger, but they thought that the third $1 million wire transfer request was odd. So they had done 2 $1 million wire transfers. Are you going to get tricked into sending 10,000? Or are you going to get tricked into sending 250,000? I don't know. So that's why the limit game is impossible to answer. I would just say if you really want to track the limits in terms of kind of the PHI and PII, and when I say PHI, I mean protected health information. And when I say PII, I mean personally identifiable information, social security numbers, driver's license numbers. You could go through your client list. You can get a rough idea of how many people would be infected. That you probably don't have a problem determining the limits. But when it comes to the ransom part and the cyber crime, it's impossible. So we always tell our clients, if you think like $2 million is probably enough, look at 3 million, if it's not cost prohibitive. Going to the next slide here, because again, I want to be mindful of people's time. I know it's nice. There's been some changes. I mean, you guys can Google, cyber insurance claims, loss ratios, whatever. You could see over the last couple of years, it's been rough, for the insurance carriers. So the insurance carriers, a lot of them, they might be collecting $1 and they're paying out $1.50. I mean, me being a business owner, I don't know how long I could stay in business. Luckily for the insurance carriers, they're multi-tentacled, right? Meaning that they've got personal insurance, they've got landscapers insurance, they can sell life insurance, they can sell bakery insurance, they got other tentacles. If they have to take a loss on a tentacle for a year or two, they'll do it. They're just not going to do it for a long time. So a lot of these cyber carriers have said, okay, we're kind of seeing how the claims come in. We're seeing, how these policies respond. So we're going to make some changes here in 2023. And I gave Jeff and the team kind of 4 areas where we see cyber carriers, trying to limit their exposure. One of them is co-insurance on ransomware and cyber extortion. So this is taken straight from healthcare. If I go to the doctor and I have a copay of $20 and I go back to see the doctor and they say, hey, we want to run an x-ray and it's $1,000 and I've got 20% co-insurance, my insurance pays $800, I pay $200. So actually that doctor's visit cost me $220, the $20 to get in and the $200 for the x-ray. Same thing with co-insurance on ransomware. If you have a $10,000 deductible, you pay the $10,000. If the co-insurance is, 20% on $1 million, you have to pay $210,000 for that. Co-insurance can be deadly. Because it requires you to pay a lot more than just your premiums. So I personally would not take out a policy that has co-insurance. Sublimit on ransomware, we talked about it. You might look at it and you might say, wow, I've got $1 million policies, but then when you stare at the cyber extortion, it's 100,000. So the larger, we just went over and said it's roughly $400,000 per ransom. The closer you can get to $1 million or 2 million, or what they call full limits, if you take out a $2 million policy, you want 2 million of cyber extortion, that's going to be advantageous. What's the definition of computer systems? If your data goes into the cloud, which is where it's held all the time, if that cloud provider gets hit with a ransomware attack, are you covered? Will your policy pay for it? Because you're going to have a hard time negotiating with Azure and AWS. Again, there's only so many cloud providers out there, and unfortunately, whether we like it or not, a lot of the big providers control a majority of the cloud services. Is it going to be covered? Check. And then last thing is cyber terrorism. There used to be carve-backs. There's always going to be a war terrorism exclusion in your cyber policy. It's always going to be there, and it's meant for kind of what's going on in Eastern Europe right now. And forever there would be a carve-out saying this doesn't, apply to cyber terrorism. And then when you read the cyber terrorism carve-back, it essentially said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, as long as you don't incite somebody for political, ideological, religious, those hot button issues, right? Then if you get hit with cyber terrorism, we'll cover it. Now they're lumping cyber terrorism in with war and exclusion, or I'm sorry, with the war and terrorism exclusion. So there's no carback. So those are just 4 things that I wanted to point out when you're shopping for cyber insurance that I want you to pay attention to.
Some of the, you mentioned changes in 2023. Some of the things that I've seen throughout the years, purchasing cyber liability, is the questionnaire has changed. And this is a perfect example, right? As you see claims come in, why was this guy vulnerable? Why was this business hacked and not the next one? It's because they were not doing A, B, and C. So A, B, and C get added to the questionnaire. Prior, when you fill out an application for insurance. One of the things cyber terrorism that I've seen lately is if you're out, everybody's got a hot button issue they care about nowadays, but if you're out flaunting that on social media and someone makes you a target, how willing is the insurance company going to be to pay that, given that you brought this upon yourself? You mentioned inciting violence, but there's a lot of companies out there that take a stance, whether they're on one side or the other, and make it very, very vocal on social media, which makes them a target.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, when you're talking about some of that stuff, it always makes me laugh when somebody will call us up and say, I'm a 4-person accounting firm. Do I really need cyber insurance? And I tell them, you know what? It's kind of like when I was a kid, and I would throw a net into the water. I didn't care whether it was a bass, whether it was rainbow trout. I didn't care what type of fish. I just wanted to catch a fish. And I think people on the call have to realize, are there people that go after Verizon or IBM? Sure, there are, right? But a majority of these people, they call it ransomware as a service. It's a business model. You can look it on the internet. All they're doing is finding vulnerabilities in code, right? Or finding deficiencies in security, and they're writing code to detect that, and they're throwing a fish in the water. They don't care whether they catch a 2-person accounting firm or whether they catch a 100-person accounting firm. It's a payday. It's food on the table. And so that's the one thing that I always laugh is that people say, "Oh, well, my industry isn't targeted," or because of the size, they're really not going to go after me. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're just
Yep.
going fishing. They want food on the table.
Yeah, there's an organization here in New Hampshire of tax professionals that's what they do. They're not CPAs, but they can represent you in, I guess they call it IRS court or whatever you want to call it, tax court. And they do taxes on a regular basis. And I did a talk, cybersecurity talk, and the question was, hey, I'm a one-person shop. I can't afford all this stuff. And my question is, well, how many clients do you have? They got 50 clients with all of their tax information, businesses and individuals. And how's that stuff being protected? So you get that kind of information, right next to healthcare information. Financials is huge, especially when you got their tax records, their social security numbers, and everything else all in one place.
Yeah. So, and we've even seen him up the ante, right? And Jeff and the technology that he implements is getting better and better. And so a lot of times we can retrieve these backups and we don't need to pay the ransom. So now they're going in and saying, "Hey, Justin, here's the last 6 digits of your social security number." And then I say, "Well, how did you get that?" And they say, "Well, talk to that medical provider or that accounting firm. They'll tell you." And so they're getting us to pay that ransom via some even more unethical procedures and practices. But
Yep.
so it's just important, man. I would say that, I just see, Christine, I hope I'm saying her name right, that she said she didn't have cyber insurance, and, have Jeff take down your network, and just see how you can operate your business. The insurance carriers, whether they like it or not, they've gotten really good at incident response over the last several years because they've had to.
And that's, when we talk about response and recovery, it is unethical for your IT service provider to be that forensic organization that comes in and does the forensics for recovery. That's a third party, and they are not cheap. They are very expensive because they specialize in what they do. So that's your second call after you call your insurance company. What do we do? So insurance companies have gone through this. I look at them as my partner. Something I think about, I have to think about. We protect a lot of businesses' networks. But I sleep at night knowing that, I'm following the rules. Most of our clients are following the rules, and we have someone that's got our back should the proverbial crap hit the fan.
Yeah. And then I think, listen, this last slide, like I said, I know it's Thursday afternoon, I want to keep people, but these are just kind of some of the industries. If you wanted to know, again, it's from the Net Diligence report, where the insurance companies participate and share claims data with Net Diligence. But everyone again thinks, Jeff was alluding to, like healthcare and financial, all those are the biggest risks. Actually, they're not. Professional services, me, the accounting firm, the law firm, the architect, the engineer, the advertising agency. It's not even close. I mean, manufacturer's second, but it's 3x manufacturing. So, I don't know how you can be in a professional services type organization knowing that you're the most hit and not carry cyber insurance. So, if people always ask, well, again, what industries, this kind of just tells you. But a lot of people on this call are the most targeted professional services industry. Why? Quite honestly, most of the claims that we get in are from dentists and lawyers. And I don't know why, but they tend to have the least amount of security in place. And it's not me, it's just the statistics of what we see. So, those are areas that I would pay attention to because, as we alluded to before, a lot of this stuff's preventable, right? When you get those checklists from the insurance carriers, they're looking at, about 5 things. They're looking at multi-factor. They're looking at EDR, which is like an antivirus on steroids. They're looking for backups that are disconnected in the cloud. They're looking for security awareness training. Are you going through that? And then they're looking for more of a procedural thing called out-of-band authentication or dual authorization, meaning if you get a request for the wire transfer via email, are you picking up the phone and calling that person to make sure? If you do those 5 things, a lot of the claims come off the table, so that's really what the insurance carriers are going to, hammer you on. So, that's why you got Jeff and the team. I mean, they're following that standard of NIST, which I've got to follow the Department of Insurance. A lawyer has to follow the bar, an accountant has to follow the AICPA guidelines. Jeff's just following the standards that were presented to him. So he's not trying to upsell you. He's strictly just saying, you know what, here are the standards that the government wants me to have in place. If you've got a problem, call Washington, but at the end of the day, right, I think if you have the proper security and you've got a comprehensive cyber insurance policy, I think that if there is going to be a tornado that comes in, or actually, I guess I should use a hurricane. If there is going to be a hurricane that comes through, instead of it being a Cat 5, maybe it ends up being a tropical storm. There's still going to be a little bit of discomfort, but it doesn't have to be as bad as it would if you don't do security and you don't carry a comprehensive cyber insurance policy.
So let's see. I think this might be your slide, Justin.
Yeah, again, just I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? But just the business interruption. These are averages. How much the incident costs you, the recovery expense. I mean, right there you can see, hey, do I need $1 million policy? I haven't even paid. Look at that. I haven't even paid the ransom. So, you're already at $1 million.
I mean, when I look at it, what I say to myself is, look, if I got to close my doors tomorrow, and I was negligent, I'm probably going to get sued. So, I've had customers say, well, it isn't that worth that much to me. I'll just close my doors. I'm saying, well, it's not that easy, because if you can be proven liable in a court, you're still going to owe personally, unless you're protected with, corporate formation and things like that. But closing your doors isn't easy, because you got employees, you have customers, and there's a lot of things that statement doesn't go very far when you start thinking about the details of just closing up shop.
Yeah, I saw a question pop in here. I mean, yeah, nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofit clients. They're great. My mom ran a nonprofit forever, but they have really, really tight budgets. So oftentimes they don't have the right security in place. And so, they do tend to get hit. So I hope that answered, what should a nonprofit look for when a third-party book is providing virtual accounting? I would make sure, when they call the bonded insured, right? The bonded really means that they have a third-party crime bond, that if they steal money from your organization, the insurance company will compensate you. So I would make sure that, that they have a cyber policy, because what happens if, their email is hacked and, you pay an invoice based off of a bogus email that goes to a bad actor, right? So, you want to have cyber insurance so that they can get that money from the cyber insurance carrier. I really wouldn't worry probably too much about general liability because they're not coming on. Obviously, you want to make sure that that bookkeeper has accountant's professional liability. So again, I would say professional liability, cyber insurance, and a third-party crime bond. If you do those three things, I think you'll be good.
I think we could probably, Christina, open it up to questions. If anybody else has questions, this recording is available. I know we had a number of people say they're not available to join, but they want the recording. So as many questions as we can get, we can help those people that view the video later as much information as possible. Christine's typing a message here.
Yeah. And again, if you don't, feel free to email Jeff. And, again, Jeff, I'll send you kind of when we talked about those insuring agreements, what they mean. When we get done, I'll send that over to you so you can get it out to the folks that, attended the webinar.
I have too, if anybody's interested. When we do what we call our technology business reviews with our customers, we go through the insurance questionnaire. It's eye-opening, but it also supports, what we've been talking about with the NIST cybersecurity framework and proper protection and limits and all that stuff. Yeah, we could probably open up the mics too. There's only a couple people on here, if that helps.
I apologize. For some reason, it's not letting me unmute you. So give me 1 second. I'm going to try to figure out on my end, but I know that Jean's writing right now. So, and if you do have any more questions, Christine, you could put them in the chat. I'm going to see if I can unmute you.
Yeah, we're in the process to just for you guys know, we're in the process to move it over to Zoom. We've done a number of Teams meetings like this, and it's just a little more work to administer, not as fluid as we'd like. So we're getting our Teams account up and running, and the next few webinars should be all through Zoom. I saw the reference to tornadoes out there versus our hurricanes. Depends on where you live, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm speaking in the Midwest, so I think let's see here. Our biggest.
So I don't have the ability to unmute, but Jean wrote, our biggest expense, I think, is third parties who process our clients' credit cards. How do we be sure that the insurance covers the damage of our third parties to our clients?
Yeah, I mean, part of this could be a legal question, so I would make sure that those third parties, that there's some sort of hold harmless indemnification. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't take this as legal advice. But I would make sure that they're holding you harmless and there's some sort of indemnification. B, I would make sure that they do carry a cyber insurance policy. If you do have a cyber policy, then it goes back to kind of one of the questions on one of those slides when I said, is your data covered in the cloud, right? So is that data, if that credit card information lives in another environment outside of yours, is that credit card information protected if there is exposure to it? You're going to have to ask your cyber insurance carrier because different carriers treat that different ways.
I mean, just to chime in here, the thing that I think about when I see this is if you're processing credit cards, number one, you have a processor which should be running PCI compliance on wherever you take credit cards, whether it's online through a website or in person via swiping or some other method. Your compliance basically says, hey, are you doing these things? It's almost like the Cyber Liability Insurance questionnaire. PCI compliance is no joke. I mean, credit card fraud, I just had mine hacked not too long ago, who knows where, but they cancel it, they give you a new one, and you're not liable for the money, but somebody's got to pay that bill. The other thing I would mention here too is Gene mentioned the biggest exposure is credit card processing. I would say, Justin mentioned PII, personally identifiable information. For nonprofits is I would say the biggest target is the donor database. I would say it's those donors. Those are your customers. The customers that come through the facility are also customers, but I would say the donor database is probably the most valuable asset. Any comment on that, Justin, working with nonprofits?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I go back that, a lot of stuff, comes back to, a ransomware and a cybercrime event. So, if the donor database has, certain private information, again, I'm just speaking from, a high level, they're looking for immediate cash, immediate payment, right? And the best way to do that is to trick you into sending money to someone that you shouldn't, and shutting you down so that no one can access your systems and you can't, and getting them to pay. So I think, again, Jeff, regardless of industry, regardless of size, that's what's going on in 2023.
Back to the credit card thing, the processors, global payment systems and the banks, they're all covered. Their exposure is the merchant. The time where that card is presented, the number is typed in or swiped or read via chip reader, that's where the fraud happens. Once it hits the airwaves, that data's, or the internet, that data is encrypted back to the bank. So I would say most of the processors are doing their due diligence, or they wouldn't be processors in the first place. Those are the entities I was talking about, that they have to comply with regulation or they don't exist. Global payments is one of the biggest ones. That's why I brought them up. They wouldn't exist. I'm sure they get hit. I'm sure they have expensive lawyers, and I'm sure they have plenty of insurance. But they definitely do due diligence to make sure that our transactions are secure. The most exposure, in my experience, is from that point of card, wherever it's read, received, swiped. That's where it is, and that's why we look at what's the number one is any place you swipe a mag stripe nowadays. Why are we still doing that when we got chip readers? But then you look at, okay, how often do you use that chip or the card in person versus typing it into a web page versus giving it to a company to charge automatic payments to? So all those transactions still go through this processor, but the exposure is really at the point of presenting that card.
Yeah.
I think we might have already answered, do these third-party credit card processors need to be PCI compliant? Does this compliance include cybersecurity?
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning about global payments. I mean, they spend heavily on cybersecurity, and I'm sure they're doing what they have to stay in business, and they are regulated by the banking industry, which is probably one of the most secure in the world. So.
And I see Gene's typing again. And again, all this information, I mean, Justin's going to send us over a sheet, and I'm going to pass it along to you guys who are attending today. I'm also going to pass along this video. We have our YouTube channel that has our webinars on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass that through you, and you could pass it along to whoever needs to, be notified about why cyber liability insurance is very important. We're encouraging everybody to watch it. I know we don't take a lot of time to teach you about cyber liability insurance, but I think it's also important that, learn about it and then implement afterwards.
And by the way, I don't want my MSPs, just to let you know, commenting on cyber insurance. So I like it that you aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get with somebody that, is a trusted advisor to your organization, and get with them.
And when it comes to cyber liability insurance, we've also helped out our clients. There's like a questionnaire that tends to come with it, because, you have to have the right processes in place. We've helped our clients, fill out this worksheet. So it's not just, hey, you need cyber liability insurance, we're going to leave you in the dust. No, we'll help you out. We'll talk with Justin and get you on the right path.
So to answer Jean's question, we type in the card number. I'm presuming that's at your credit card processor, and the browser always asks we want to keep the number. And I'm assuming that is, again, not the browser. It's not, Google Chrome is not storing the number, but the credit card processor is for future transactions. There's a couple of number things in play here. I mean, if you go to, a popular online merchant and, they ask to store your information, it's encrypted. It's really a convenience thing. If they get hacked, will it be available? Well, they're not allowed to expose anything but the last four numbers anyway. So that number would remain encrypted. It's like when you go to your bank, you really can't see your account number unless you print a statement. So that's kind of, the browser storing credit card information. I think it's more the merchant or the place where you're entering the credit card. It depends on how much you trust it. Is LL Bean going to be reckless with your credit card? No, they spend a lot of money on cybersecurity. They want you to come back and not have to type all that information in. You log into your account and you buy something. It's a quick transaction. Do I do it? Hell no. We have some merchants that we buy from on a regular basis that are global players, and yeah, they have our credit card on file. They charge it. They don't have my bank account on file. They have the credit card on file. So if there's fraud involved, obviously there's limited liability. But storing credit cards online, not necessarily a good idea. It's a convenience. If you're doing it for your customers, I would say no, don't save it. And there is a way to turn off features in the browser to not store information. Christine's question about learning more. Education on this subject is everywhere. It depends on what you want to focus on. This cybersecurity framework will teach you all of the things that you should do. It's nist.gov. That you should do to protect yourself. There's also a number of consumer outreach right from nist.gov programs that you could get an email, you could get a text message on a regular basis, with little tips on how to pay attention to our Facebook page and our LinkedIn page. We put out tips, Tech Tip Tuesday, on how to stay safe online, things to do. The biggest thing is, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. If it looks fishy, it is. Never answer a phone call and provide information, get a callback number. There's all kinds of places to go to get this type of information. Yeah, it is nist.gov, I believe. I'll look it up right now. If you just Google NIST cybersecurity framework, it's nist.gov. Yeah, nist.gov, nist.gov. N as in Nancy, I as in, what is I?
Indigo.
Go look. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
It's
India.
it'll put you to sleep, Christine.
Yeah, it will put you to sleep. But there's outreach programs that are usually pretty good that you can get that are meant for consumers, and they make posters that you can put around the workplace and things like that. Just reminders. We also have so part of our cybersecurity framework, we're rolling out a package of tools, and one of them is cybersecurity education, and it's basically weekly micro trainings, annual review trainings, and simulated phishing to see how your employees respond to fraudulent emails. Pretty good. Training's really good.
We are doing the webinar the third Thursday of every month. I tend to advertise it around 2 weeks beforehand, but I could definitely send out a list of the future ones that we are going to do. They're about an hour each, and they all focus around the NIST cybersecurity framework. We're trying to teach everybody more about why it's important to stay safe online and ways to prevent it from happening in the first place. But this is a good, valuable tool that we're going to be doing. And for future, we're going to also pass out these things called Summit Climbers, just teaching our clients how to use tools and how to stay safe online. They're about like 5-minute snippet videos, but we're going to try to send them out every other week.
And with no more questions,
So just a quick overview about the benefits. I know we already spoke about it, but it's protection against financial losses resulting in a cyber breach, coverage for legal expenses related to data breaches or cyber attacks. It also assists you with crisis management and public relations effort. And then there's support for the data recovery and restoration, compliance regulations and legal requirements related to data and privacy security. And the last thing is that you have the peace of mind knowing that your business is protected against cyber breaches and threats. So if you are breached, you have, a game plan in the long run, like Jeff had noted before, and then this cybersecurity framework, that's the last part of it. And, within this cybersecurity frameworks, or if you are in those regulated government type businesses, it's important to follow each step within the cybersecurity framework. So I want to thank Jeff and Justin for joining us today, giving us all this information. Our videos will be posted on YouTube, and I also will send out the link in an email later on today. And I do want to let our clients know that we're also pushing forward a referral program where, we can, it's kind of out there, but you have the opportunity of winning a vacation if you send us referrals. I'm going to go ahead and add that link to the email that we're passing out later today. And I know Justin noted that he's going to pass along a sheet to Jeff, just kind of the basics of cybersecurity. I will also pass it along to you guys. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending, our speakers today. It was very valuable information, and I think other people agree too. Thanks, Christine.
Justin, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Always a pleasure learning from you.
I wasn't typing being rude. I actually sent it over to you guys because I didn't want to forget. So
Okay.
It's in your inbox.
Awesome. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And you got 5 minutes left of this, the rest of your day. So thank you guys so very much. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.